Welcome back to another episode of the Detached Podcast. Today we're going to go through an episode to try demyst some of the things that you see in the longevity industry. As we know, it's so noisy. So welcome on the podcast. I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Siim Land. I'm an anthropologist and author. I've been writing books about health for the last 10 years. And I have a YouTube channel where I make content about different topics of health. And you could also consider me, I guess, enthusiast in itself in longevity, who tries to optimize their own health and get good results with it.
So you said 10 years. When I was looking back and doing a bit of research on you, I noticed the passion really started 12 years. You're researching, right?
Yeah, I started my blog, I think, around 10 years ago, but I got into health as a thing that I do for myself around 12 years ago, maybe a bit earlier even than that, maybe 14, 15 years ago. But the initial interest started around that time when I was in the military in Estonia, the mandatory service of military. I was interested in fitness, so I did, exercise a lot and started to pay attention to nutrition and diet. And during my university, when I was studying anthropology, I started my blog where I initially just wrote about whatever I wanted to write about, different topics of, what I'm doing for myself and different experiments I did. And then over the course of time, it evolved into a YouTube channel, which I've done for the YouTube itself I've been doing that for 8 years, I think, or maybe even not 9 years, not exactly sure, but I've moved from just general health optimization towards longevity science nowadays.
So what kind of household did you grow up in to kind of manifest into this passion of research and longevity? Was there any link to that?
Well, I grew up in this small island in Estonia, and grew up in the countryside with just spending time outside with different animals and dogs, and our household wasn't particularly health conscious. It was just a very regular household. My mother was a English teacher, and father was a policeman, so a very humble background in that sense. The only thing that I do think contributed to my interest in longevity was my grandfather, my mother's father, who died to colon cancer when he was 36. So I never met him, and I did want to, take my health more seriously. Around this university time, I had this realization that I might not have good genes, so I'll have to be more careful with my health. I'm 31 right now, so 36 is pretty close. Obviously, I'm a lot healthier than my grandfather, who smoked, and that increases the risk of colon cancer. But
did he die when he was 36?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, I just wanted to be more preventive with my health, and that's why I got interested in more than just fitness. So I was doing, I guess, some not professional bodybuilding, but I did some competitions as well in Estonia in this junior bodybuilding league. So that was the fitness side of things I was interested in. But then
were you natural or natty?
No, I mean, I was obviously natural. So it was just, I was mostly in the fitness side of things. So muscle and strength training. And then I wanted to get into more preventive health and longevity after this realization.
Wow. So at that period of time when you first started researching and kind of trying to optimize your health, was there anybody around you at that time that questioned your choices to follow this health journey?
Well, my mother was, she's, just a regular person. She's not particularly interested in health that much. She obviously still tries to pay attention to what she eats nowadays and things like that. But, things that I did back then might have been weird for her, when I was into the fitness, counting the calories and macros and things like that, she's just, it looks weird for a regular person, and it looks like some eating disorder or something like that. But, as a fitness, competitor or fitness enthusiast, you're just doing it because you love the sport. So, yeah, those things might look weird. And I was also doing intermittent fasting, which can also, for some people, look like an eating disorder. But it's just, you skip breakfast and then you have like lunch and dinner. I ate twice as much food in those meals, so I wasn't like starving myself. But it's just the idea of skipping a meal for the average person looks very weird. Nowadays, she's like super used to it. She knows it's just what I do. But yeah, initially, in my early 20s, it looks weird for the parent.
Did you ever feel like you had to over-explain yourself when you were younger?
I mean, I did explain why I was doing it, so I think she eventually got the message that it wasn't something neurotic or anything.
What would you say to someone who's in a similar situation that has serious health protocols and they feel like their family is questioning their actions? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I think you need to actually be sure that it's not some sort of a disorder that, I guess like for people who have actual disorders, for them, it's not a disorder. So I think you need to be sure that it's not actually something that is harming your health and isn't causing you problems physically or mentally. So, things like, are you normal body weight? Are you getting too skinny? Or are you, the opposite side, gaining too much weight? If you're some bulking a bodybuilder, for example, there's two ends of spectrum. Are you super neurotic about your diet? And are you, afraid of any X food that is off the menu for you? Those can easily be, moving into the, I guess you can call them like a disordered territory where, I personally have right now like no restrictions in my diet, like, but I guess for some people there might be some allergies or some food sensitivities. So for them, they need to avoid certain foods. But I think if you explain to the people why you're doing it, what's the research about it or something, then it can sound a lot more convincing and reasonable. So yeah, I think a lot of things in health can be unreasonable for the average person. So you shouldn't always listen to what your parents say about your health, like going for a run or doing some exercise might sound unreasonable and might sound neurotic for the average person, but I think those are just the baseline fundamentals that everyone should actually do. Not putting sugar in your coffee or something. For me, it sounds like logical that what you would do, but for my grandma, maybe it might sound that I'm starving myself if I don't put sugar in my coffee.
Absolutely. You just mentioned there about being flexible. From a psychological perspective, how important is it to be flexible when it comes to looking after your health?
I think it's super important. So, it's important to realize that with like let's say diet, there's no evidence that having this 100% perfect diet, 100% organic food, 100% whole food, no added sugar, no seed oil, no some preservatives that make you live longer than kind of this average mediocre diet with semi-healthy foods. And it also matters on the broader context of what else are you doing. So if you eat a perfect diet but you don't exercise and you don't sleep enough or you drink alcohol, that's worse for you than having a slightly worse diet but having everything else optimized as well. So the diet is only a means to achieve perfect health, and a small, let's say, hiccup or slightly suboptimal diet isn't necessarily going to get in the way of optimal health. You can have perfect blood markers, you can have perfect sleep and perfect body composition with kind of this 80-20 rule type of diet that you eat healthy the vast majority of time, but you still are allowed to have some suboptimal foods, or you can have some days where you're not following your diet, etc. What matters is the broader scheme of things. So it's important to realize that. And a lot of the restrictions or neuroticism about having a perfect diet or being super strict with your routines comes from not realizing that, or second of all, just being afraid that if I fall off the wagon, if I stop doing my routine, then I'm not able to get back onto it, and therefore I need to maintain this strict routine so that I wouldn't develop bad habits. But that's a
control problem.
Yeah, that's a control problem, and actually it's the root of the problem. That if you were to be a little bit more flexible with your diet, then over the course of time you will just be very carefree and flexible about it, because that you'll be able to get back on track whenever you want to.
So the word longevity is thrown around on a daily basis, and it's so mainstream at the moment. What does longevity mean to you, and what does it look like?
Yeah, longevity just in of itself means living longer, but I think living healthier is also an important component to that. So it's a combination of both. So if you are healthier for longer, you will also live longer. Healthier people tend to live longer on average. Of course, there are some cases where some genetic conditions or some bad luck can make a person live shorter as well. But generally speaking, healthier people tend to live longer, and longevity comes down, you can't really know what is your genetic potential of how long you can live, whether or not you have good genes or bad genes. Even if you do a DNA test, you don't have like a roadmap of, okay, this is my time of death. We none of us know when we will die. So
would you like to know?
Well, not really. I think it's better to
ignorance is bliss.
Not necessarily know that, but it is important to focus on the day-to-day activities of trying to be healthier, because in the process you're extending that window. So each day goes by, technically speaking, it's gonna be harder to get healthier because we get older, and as we get older, our bodies get they see a decline in function and aging process. It makes it harder for us to stay healthier or maintain where we were before 10 years ago, for example. So every day is harder for us to stay healthier, but if we keep pushing that boulder up a hill, so to say, then we are extending this health span window. So we're staying healthier for longer. And the longer we do it, then the longer our lifespan can also be. If we stop following the healthy lifestyle, then we start to decline faster. So the boulder is pushing us back down the hill, and we'll die sooner as well. So if you don't push the boulder up the hill of following the healthy routines, then we will age faster and die sooner.
So trying to optimize your health, right? Where do you begin when you want to understand what kind of ingredients you're working with? Where do you start? Is it blood panels? What's your go-to approach for this?
Yeah, I mean, most people will just do fine with a generally whole foods diet. So, there's situations where some people are gluten intolerant, lactose intolerant, they can't tolerate eggs or even tomatoes or cucumbers, whatever the case is. So those are going to be more fringe cases. They're not going to represent the majority of people. Most people will do fine with a diet that focuses on fruits, vegetables, leaner proteins, dairy products, eggs, fish, nut seeds, tubers, those kind of whole foods, minimally processed foods. And then you can try to figure out if you have some sensitivities towards certain ingredients like dairy or gluten or these lectins or certain fibers. Some people are going to have a harder time tolerating them, but I don't think that should be the presumption going into it.
Let me reframe that question. Maybe I was a little bit too Irish when I said that. So I mean, like, what kind of tests would you do, or would you suggest to
Okay.
someone to do to understand what's on the inside to optimize their health?
Gotcha.
I used ingredients as like what's in the inside, your
Yeah.
current ingredients, you know?
Yeah, so doing blood tests can certainly give you a direct representation of your inner health, and blood work is a good way to assess your future disease risk and your health status. I wouldn't put it as the first thing to do. The first thing is body composition, so because that you can visibly see, and that's also something that matters the most, because if you're let's say overweight and obese, then that's your biggest priority, is to try to overcome that, because we know obesity, it promotes pretty much all of the chronic diseases, increases risk of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, shortens lifespan, etc. So it's one of the biggest problems in modern society is excess body fat and obesity, and it's also one of the easiest to solve, because weight loss is not rocket science in the sense of the pure physics of the problem. It's psychologically hard, so people have a hard time to lose weight, but physically it's a simple problem to solve. So and pretty much everyone knows what to do to achieve that. They deep down know what to do, that they need to follow a healthier lifestyle, they need to eat a better diet, just walk more and those kind of things. So if you don't do any blood tests but you lose weight and you achieve a normal body composition, then you can be pretty sure that all the blood markers will also improve in the process. So if someone hasn't done the blood work, then they can start with just trying to lose weight. And a good way to estimate how much body fat do I have, or if I have too much, is to measure your waist circumference. So if you store more fat around the belly, so this beer belly, then that's a sign your body is accumulating more fat around the organs, which is called a visceral fat. And this visceral fat is particularly bad because it inhibits organ function, it secretes inflammatory cytokines, and just is associated with a much higher risk of diabetes and heart disease compared to fat around under the skin, which is subcutaneous fat. So measuring the waist circumference, you can see if you have too much visceral fat. And the waist circumference should always be narrower than your hip circumference. So for both men and women. So the hips are naturally wider, and the waist should be smaller than the hip circumference. Then blood marker wise, there's hundreds of blood markers you could measure. Generally speaking, the most important ones that directly relate to the risk of future diseases are things like your blood sugar, your insulin sensitivity markers, your inflammation status, your kidney markers, liver markers, lipids like cholesterol and lipoproteins, and complete blood cell count. And there's hundreds of markers you could measure, but just looking at the major biomarkers related to chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes and kidney disease, you can see if you're either heading in the wrong direction or you're in the optimal range.
So when we talk about fat loss, right, obviously you can see GLP-1, like GIP, retatrutide is so popular right now. I would love to hear your opinion on weight loss drugs.
Well, I think it's better for your health to use the GLP-1 and not be obese than to stay obese. So some people have some natural aversion of pharmaceuticals just for the sake that they're pharmaceuticals, but it's much based on the current evidence, there doesn't appear to be any significant health concerns from these GLP-1 drugs that can't be avoided with some adjustment to diet and other lifestyle factors. So it's certainly much worse for someone to be overweight than to use these pharmaceuticals. And I do think that there might be some additional health benefits as well beyond just weight loss. So
have you found anything during your research?
I mean, there's certainly benefits for cardiovascular risk factors and neurodegeneration risk factors. So just improving the overall metabolic health, you will see also lower risk of heart disease and Alzheimer's, because these different systems of the body are so connected. Now, there's no hard evidence that they would actually make you live longer or reduce your risk of future heart disease if you're otherwise healthy and non-diabetic. But I do think that people will be starting to use them in like microdose amounts. I'm not planning to do it myself right now, but there's potential there. We just need some more research about that.
I know you like to try and test many different products out there, which is super interesting for me, because I think, when you want to talk about something, I think you have to kind of walk the path that you're talking about. So there was one in particular, which was melatonin, which I found fascinating. So can you just tell me a little bit about your melatonin experience that you had? Because I know you didn't sleep for longer periods, but you were more refreshed.
Yeah, I think you're referring to me taking 100 milligrams of melatonin, which is 100 times more than what usually people take. And, I've been taking melatonin for many years, not like every night, but I've experimented with it.
Was it because you had poor sleep, or what was
No, I mean, I think melatonin is very underrated, and it's one of the most powerful antioxidants in the body. People say that glutathione is the master antioxidant in the body, but glutathione is also regulated by melatonin, and melatonin appears to be specifically powerful antioxidant for the mitochondria, which produce energy in your body. So people take larger doses of melatonin oftentimes to gain more like longevity benefits. And there's some interesting studies about 100 milligrams melatonin, which shows that it's generally safe, little to no side effects. And, I decided to try it out. I slept shorter than usually, which was interesting. I don't know if it was specifically because of the melatonin, but it was a consistent effect throughout the nights when I was taking it. From some other studies, 10 milligrams of melatonin also lowers things like inflammation and cholesterol levels. I didn't do like a placebo-controlled trial on myself, but I have seen that there is some reduction in my cholesterol, at least over the last few years. One of the things I have tried was this larger dose melatonin, but I'm not doing it every night. So it's hard to say if it's because of that or other things. So I do think melatonin is more than for sleep. It's shown to improve sleep in smaller doses, such as 0.1 to 3 milligrams. That's a typical dose. But slightly larger doses, 10 milligrams, it improves inflammation and lipids. And there's some studies as well on these very large doses, 100 milligrams, 300 milligrams of melatonin, showing some benefits as well. But they're done on more like clinically diseased populations. So it's hard to say if otherwise healthy people would benefit from very large dose melatonin, but I just did it to try it out.
On the topic of sleep, is there any other kind of remedies that you would suggest, or any sort of, whether it's natural or whether it's something synthetic, what would you recommend in terms of trying to optimize sleep?
Glycine is a good supplement for sleep. So it's an amino acid found in collagenous proteins, and glycine lowers body temperature, which helps with the onset of melatonin production. Glycine lowers blood sugar, which can help with blood sugar stabilization in the nighttime. It increases GABA, which is this relaxation neurotransmitter, and it has been shown to improve sleep in humans, in human studies. So something like 3 grams of glycine before bed is what I take on most nights, and I take it for other reasons, but the sleep is one of the benefits. And the glycine also reduces nighttime urination. So that's another thing people might suffer with.
No way. So what other things, is it because of this reason?
What?
Why maybe you take it? What other reasons?
The other reasons are that glycine helps collagen synthesis. So that's for joints and skin health, and glutathione synthesis. So that's the antioxidant. So glycine is a very common amino acid used in the body, and we're not really getting that much of it in our diet. So you get glycine from things like tendon meat, skins, ligaments, and those bones. So the modern diet is very low in those food groups. So we're getting large amounts of muscle meat and eggs, dairy, fish. Those are high in methionine, which is another amino acid. And excess methionine in animals, at least, has been seen to shorten lifespan because of leading to methionine toxicity and increasing homocysteine levels, which might increase the risk of heart disease. Whereas glycine counterbalances the methionine, so it lowers the balance between these two amino acids. So that has shown to extend lifespan in animals. So that's the reason I take it. The main reason I take it is potential to have lifespan benefits. So I'm trying to eat a bit less methionine and increase my glycine intake. But the additional benefits are the collagen synthesis for skin and tendons, the glutathione for immunity and antioxidant defense, blood sugar regulation. So glycine inhibits the formation of these advanced glycation end products, which cause skin aging, and glycine also helps with sleep. So there's a lot of reasons I take it, but it's the main idea, I guess, it's for longevity.
When you mentioned body temperature, what's the ideal body temperature or room temperature to go to sleep to enhance your REM sleep?
I think it probably is very individual, and chances are it also fluctuates between, or like intra-individual, that on some nights you probably want a bit warmer and other nights a bit cooler, depending on what your baseline temperature at that moment and the season and things like that. So if you have a fever or you're feeling a bit sick, you probably want a bit warmer. If you're feeling super hot, you want a bit cooler. So that depends a lot on the situation. And but generally speaking, too high body temperature inhibits sleep. It reduces sleep quality. So you want to get it a little bit cooler. You don't want to feel super hot in the bedtime. So glycine is one that lowers the body temperature. But things like a warm shower actually might also do it. It can lower the core body temperature.
So we just talked on supplements. What's your thoughts on injecting over oral supplements? Are you a supplement guy? Are you an injecting guy? Or do you have a happy medium between both? And what's the difference?
I think most supplements can be taken orally. So you want to, whenever you're taking something, you want to, mimic or replicate the way it was done in the studies, so that you know that you would get the same effects. So if there is, studies that oral carnitine doesn't really do much, then why would you take the oral carnitine? And but there is studies that injectable carnitine, you need to inject it to get the benefits on fat loss, for example, and energy, exercise performance. So in that case, you wouldn't take the oral carnitine because the studies show that it doesn't really do much. Whereas with other supplements, like oral supplements, like astaxanthin or glycine, for example, there is studies that does work orally, so you can stick to that format. Most supplements can't be taken injectably either, so I haven't seen injectable glycine or something like that. So most of the supplements will be coming orally. Maybe there's some liposomal formulations and different mediums of transfer for certain compounds, like there's liposomal vitamin C and liposomal B vitamins, etc., liposomal glutathione. So those can be a slightly higher bioavailability than regular oral supplements. So those are a few examples that exist. But peptides and things like that, then most peptides need to be injected for bioavailability. BPC does have oral bioavailability as well, but it depends. What is the evidence say, and what what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get the same effects as you saw in the studies, then you need to follow the same procedure as well in the study.
So what is some of the most overrated supplements that you think people should save their money and not buy?
Well, right now, one of the more popular supplements is it's not like super popular, but at least in the sub niche of health, in the longevity sub niche, there's Mitopure, which is urolithin A, and it has a very good marketing. It's very aesthetic marketing. It looks very good. It has a ton of these famous doctors, social media influencers.
For the listener, what does this do?
So the Mitopure is essentially supposed to increase mitophagy, which is a process of clearing out old mitochondria and healthy aging, that you clean out mitochondria. And they have done clinical trials showing that Mitopure, or they claim that it increases endurance, muscle strength, supports immunity, and increases mitophagy markers in humans, for example. But I've dug deep into those studies, and they're not really high quality research, at least in my opinion, and other researchers in the field as well. It's not just me talking about it. There's some very renowned and respected mitochondria scientists who also raised concerns about how these studies are done, that, for example, they don't actually show statistical significance in things like VO2 max and endurance. But if you kind of muddy the waters a little bit, then you can show some effects. There's a problem with reporting certain results and not reporting other results. So to
make a biased review.
Yeah, so you can. So if you initially create a clinical trial, you need to write out what is your main goal and what are you researching. So what's the primary outcome? So in some of these studies, they write the primary outcome is this, but if the study data didn't find an effect on this particular thing that they were looking for, then they might shift the goalpost. They might not mention it. They might mention some of the other outcome that wasn't even considered in the initial drafting. So then it makes it seem that Mitopure did something, but their initial research goal was not covered because the results weren't there. So it might sound like nitpicking, but it's important to be aware of that, because it's a form of reporting bias, and it just raises questions about what else are they trying to move around. And it's a very expensive supplement. It's $120 a month, and it just sounds very convincing because of the marketing and the sleek branding, but the effects are, it's not that it's a bad supplement. It's just that the effects are grossly over exaggerated, and for that money you could spend like the same money on 5 to 8 different supplements that work, like creatine, astaxanthin, omega-3s, glycine, even vitamin C or something else like that. Those supplements have plenty of research that it do more things than this particular supplement for the same amount of money.
Do you have anything else that's overrated? I want the full list.
Well, I think resveratrol is probably also a bit overrated. Resveratrol is this stilbenoid, and it's found in certain plant foods and red wine. So initially it was thought that it extends lifespan in mice, but the research since then hasn't found it to be the case if you control for things like genetics and the way you deliver the resveratrol. So sometimes it's some of the other ingredients in what was given that actually had an effect. And in humans, resveratrol might have some negative side effects as well, that it can reduce VO2 max. It can have some negative effects on hormonal health and body composition as well. So it's not I guess, again, it's not particularly, that's harming your health. It's more that the price to benefit ratio might be a bit off and overrated, and it hasn't been shown to have significant lifespan benefits in humans as well as animals either.
Is there any other supplements that are out there that make you feel uneasy at how much hype they're currently getting?
Well, I guess maybe these NMN and NR, I think they are legitimate supplements that the studies haven't been as, shocking or promising as people thought initially, but they do have still some benefits based on the research, mostly anti-inflammatory and some metabolic health benefits slightly. But initially they were expected to be some, dramatic lifespan longevity molecules. So they have missed the mark on that, but they're still slightly above average in terms of the results.
What's your thoughts on NAD drips?
Well, the same rationale that NAD has some role. It's an important role, but getting intravenous NAD for most people is probably not a wise move, because high NAD levels are also implicated in cancer. So just getting an NAD IV, if you already have otherwise normal NAD, is not probably something you want to do. Now, there's no evidence that NAD IVs would increase cancer, but it's just you need to wager your bets, or what's it said, that you need to think about the risk to reward ratio. So there's no linear relationship between higher NAD and longevity, if that makes sense. And NAD doesn't decline linearly either in every individual.
I know cancer has been like a massive impact on you and your research. Has there been any other supplements that you have felt like there's a fine line in between risk and, like progressing cancer, or is there anything that's out there that we should be aware of that hasn't kind of gone mainstream yet?
With cancer, I don't recall anything specific, but with heart disease, at least, iron might be problematic for atherosclerosis, at least in people with high iron levels. So iron is an essential mineral, but excess iron, high iron levels seem to be implicated in atherosclerosis. So high iron increases oxidative stress and can cause blood vessel damage. So if people with high iron levels seem to get heart disease as well at a higher rate than normal iron levels. So adding an extra iron supplement for people who already have either normal or high iron levels can be definitely harmful, in my opinion. But the same applies to low iron levels. If you have anemia and very low iron levels, that's also associated with increased mortality and heart disease. So so it's a matter of context and what's the person's iron status. Calcium as well. I think the benefit of calcium for most people is limited, at least if they are consuming dairy on a regular basis. Then there's much less for them to gain. Calcium can be useful for people with low bone density or premenopausal or postmenopausal women, but for the otherwise healthy person to take a calcium supplement is not really, I think, wise, for the same reason that it can increase the risk of heart disease.
Have you ever been over supplemented? Like, as in, have you ever gotten your bloods done and you thought, oh geez, I need to pull things back?
Well, I mean, every once in a while when I'm taking vitamin D, then the blood vitamin D can be a bit high, but nothing else that much.
You haven't had any risky trials, and some of your YouTube videos, has anything ever gone wrong?
Not really. I don't think I've done anything like super extreme with supplements. So so far hasn't been any problems.
What has been the most current research that you've done on a supplement that hasn't really been exposed to the public yet? Like, is there anything that you can think of?
I guess maybe theanine is one I was researching recently. And theanine is an amino acid found in tea leaves, especially green tea. And it's very known, at least in like nootropic spaces, that theanine plus caffeine is useful for focus and just cognition. And yeah, there is research that it does do that. If you combine caffeine with theanine, you get better results than either alone. So there's some synergistic effects from theanine that usually the caffeine is this kind of arousal and very alert kind of stimulator, and the theanine is a bit more calmer, more relaxing. So it just balances it out. But there's also some interesting studies that because of that reason, the theanine can also help with sleep. So there was one study where people drank coffee 10 minutes before bed, and when they drank just the coffee, they stayed up significantly longer, and they woke up significantly more frequently compared to when they also took theanine with the caffeine. So theanine can help with sleep, especially if you might have had too much caffeine too late in the day. And it balances the arousing effect of caffeine.
What's your take on caffeine? As in, do you have like a cut-off point within the day then to stop caffeine intake? Does it impact your sleep, or what's your
for me personally, I don't have problems with sleep when drinking caffeine. So there's a genetic component.
You metabolize.
Yeah, some people are very fast metabolizers of caffeine, others are slow. I could drink coffee for dinner and I can still fall asleep just fine. Some people need to stop drinking caffeine in the morning to get good sleep. So yes, caffeine can be bad for sleep, but caffeine is also with other benefits. Maybe not per se caffeine, but coffee, where you usually get caffeine from. So the research about coffee shows that it's associated with reduced mortality, less heart disease, less cancer, less Alzheimer's, as well as might also slow down photoaging, skin aging. So coffee itself is, based on the research at least, very beneficial. Caffeine, maybe, I think there is some like direct effects from caffeine as well on like energy metabolism. So that indirectly improves your metabolic health. But most of the benefits come from the polyphenols and other compounds in coffee.
So just for the listener, how do they understand how much caffeine they can metabolize?
Well, like with caffeine, there's a tolerance effect that if you keep increasing the dose, then you'll habituate to it. So if you drink 1 cup and slowly increase it over time, then you'll able to get this, you need a little bit more to get the same effect as you did in the beginning. And interestingly, that applies to blood pressure as well. So coffee and caffeine intake is associated with lower risk of hypertension. And in the short term, caffeine raises blood pressure, but if you get used to it over time, then it doesn't. So if you keep drinking coffee regularly, then it stops raising your blood pressure, at least not so much as in the beginning. So it's better for you to continue drinking coffee on a regular basis than to drink coffee like on and off. So if you just drink coffee once a week, then that's worse for your blood pressure than drinking it every day, for example. But yeah, with regards to caffeine, then it depends on whether or not it affects your sleep and when do you consume it. So the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. So to clear your bloodstream from 50% of the caffeine, it takes 6 hours. So if you drink caffeine like 2 p.m., then you'll still have like small amounts of caffeine in your system when you're going to bed. Now, you can still fall asleep with some amount of caffeine in your bloodstream. You can still fall asleep with probably even with 100 milligrams of caffeine in your system, but it does reduce the quality of a sleep a little bit. So people just need to see what is the cutoff point that I need to stop drinking caffeine and how much can I tolerate? Generally speaking, based on the studies, around 2 to 3 cups of coffee is the sweet spot for lowest mortality risk, and most of the other associations as well with heart disease and cancer and things kind of drop at the 2 to 3 cups a day. So that's something like 200 milligrams of caffeine. And I think some people might get away with 400 even, but I would much rather keep it a bit lower to not see a disruption in sleep. So let's say 2 to 3 cups of coffee at most. And when do you stop drinking? It depends on how it's affecting your sleep. So kind of I recommend to start off with cutting off caffeine at like 2 p.m. at the latest. And if you are a fast metabolizer, then you could probably even push it a bit later than that, 4, 5, 6 p.m. But an early metabolizer needs to stop much earlier and keep the caffeine also lower, the total amount.
So when we talk about caffeine, I can see there's a movement of coffee raves, and people now, especially Gen Z, they're less likely drinking alcohol. What's your take on alcohol, and do you actually drink? Because I can imagine you optimizing your health so much. I don't even feel like this will come into your radar.
Well, I haven't drank, like 10 years. And I do think that you can get away with small amounts of alcohol for health. So it's not a binary. You can maybe drink, let's say 1 to 2 drinks per week and be completely fine. Above that, I think it starts to accumulate some negative effect on the liver and triglycerides. So 0 probably is better than 1 to 2 drinks, but they're very close together. So I would recommend to keep it at that amount. Interestingly, there was a recent study where they looked at alcohol intake status and fitness status over the course of up to 16 years, and they saw that people who had the best survival over the course of that time frame were the ones who never drank, and they also had good fitness, so high VO2 max and high cardiorespiratory fitness. The people who went from not drinking to drinking, but they also had a good fitness status, those people were the second. People who had no drinking, but they saw either a decline in their fitness or it was not changing, those people had a worse survival than people who had good fitness, but they were drinking some small amount of alcohol. So it shows that whatever the negative effect of alcohol is, being unfit and having poor cardiorespiratory fitness is worse for you than the drinking small amounts. So the bigger priority would be to have good cardiorespiratory fitness than to be either completely abstaining from alcohol or having a small amount of alcohol. High amounts of alcohol will for sure be more detrimental. So how much is high, that depends a lot on potentially genetics and other factors as well. But I think in that study there was something along the lines of over 4 drinks per week, if I'm not mistaken, but I might be wrong.
It's okay. It's interesting that you say that. Do you think people can out-train their drinking habits then, from your own take?
No, I don't. not necessarily. You could, theoretically out-exercise a bad diet, but I don't think you can out-exercise alcohol, at least above the moderate intake. So, because even if you are lean, you eat a perfect diet, but you drink alcohol, it will, especially above the moderate limit, it will show up in your blood work as elevated liver enzymes and higher triglycerides. So those are the biggest 2 things showing that you're probably drinking too much alcohol: the higher liver enzymes and higher triglycerides, even if you're otherwise lean and otherwise exercising and otherwise eating like a perfect diet.
So what's your thoughts now in the future of health? Do you think there's going to be a massive shift when it comes to alcoholism? Will people will it die off, or what's your forecast for that? What do you think?
Well, I don't think people will stop drinking alcohol. It's too much of a part of culture in most places. I think people will probably cut it down a little bit. I think they'll just maybe have like a glass of, I think getting drunk will probably be phased out a little bit, but drinking, no. So people will still have like a glass of wine for dinner or a beer for dinner or something like that, but they probably won't get like drunk that often. You know, for some celebrations they'll probably do it, but you know, they probably won't be going to bars and places like that to get drunk.
So I read some studies, now this was a long time ago when it came to alcohol, where protein synthesis would take a hindrance when you drank alcohol, even if it was just one glass of wine. I don't know if you've found any kind of recent studies, or is that true still, or is there any kind of update on that? Because if someone's going to the gym, right, and they're having that one glass every single night of the week, how is that impacting? Should they do it in just one day in the week?
Yeah, well, it's like with anything as well. Alcohol, yes, can inhibit protein synthesis. It can increase fat storage, but it doesn't mean that, you know, you drink a glass of wine and you eat the lettuce that you're gonna gain fat from the lettuce. It matters the entire, you know, energy balance and other factors as well. So, you know, there's also evidence that cold exposure after training can inhibit muscle growth because of lowering the inflammation. But, you know, it doesn't mean that if you take a cold shower that you're not going to build any muscle at all. So it's kind of, you know, the body is a very complex system, and yes, if you drink regularly, then probably you will build less muscle if you didn't drink and everything else was the same. So it does probably inhibit some of the results. It's the same with sleep. If you lift weights, but you sleep like 6 hours, 5 hours, even let's take like a 4-hour, 5-hour sleep, you will still build muscle, but you will probably build less muscle if you slept 7 to 8 hours and were fully recovered. So it does inhibit the results a little bit, but it doesn't completely negate it. And the same with fat loss. You will lose more fat if you didn't drink alcohol, but if you drink alcohol but you're in a calorie deficit, you will still lose fat.
So on the topic of stress, right, because even whether you're in Dubai or you're somewhere else in the world, we're overwhelmed with, you know, marketing, social media, advertisements all the time. We're so hooked on dopamine, where our stress levels are increasing massively, workloads are getting higher. What are the things that someone can do from a natural perspective and supplements to obviously replenish their let's say calmness inside their body, or how do they maintain to stay calm and de-stress?
Yeah, so stress, you know, can be because of various reasons. It can be like under recovery, so you're not sleeping enough, or you're just not having enough downtime, which leads to imbalance in your nervous system. It can be too much of things that stress out. So it can be too much exercise, it can be too much work, it can be too much whatever thing that is stressing you out. It can be certain micronutrient deficiencies, like if you're deficient in magnesium, you can reach the stressed out state a bit faster and it's harder for you to come down from that. It can be like lack of resilience. So stress is what stresses you out depends on where is your threshold for that. So, you know, how big is your bucket and how much stress can you handle? And stress resilience is trainable both physically and psychologically. You can psychologically become more resilient against stress, as well as physically, that if you keep doing the same thing, at least in moderation, then over time you will build tolerance to that particular stimulus, like cold or exercise or heat. You can get used to it over time. So for most people, it's probably too much work stress. You know, there's a lot of things that are constellated around the work stress, mostly like financial stress and different responsibilities, family responsibilities. So it's just, like a survival mode. Most stress is probably related to survival mode. And then there's, the additional things people do on top of that. They start to do too much exercise, or they're not sleeping enough. So you need to make sure that the recovery is adequate to the stress that you're dealing with. So if you are exercising, especially high intensity exercise, then you also need a bit more sleep. If you have a lot of work stress, then it's fine to have it, but you need to have adequate amount of downtime as well to cope with that. And in some situations, this balance can be more towards the stressed out state if you're deficient in magnesium or deficient in vitamin B1 or deficient in sunlight, also like infrared light. There's certain nutrient deficiencies as well that can keep your nervous system on the edge if you have no reason why.
What stage do you think you are with mental resilience? Do you think you've built up a huge tolerance?
Well,
because you seem quite calm.
Well, I think I do think that I have good mental resilience and physical resilience. There's probably still some things that will stress me out. It's just that in my everyday life, they're not that common oftentimes. So it's a matter of the type of stimulus and the response, if you've been able to train for that. So I don't know, if someone is never done public speaking, then they're probably gonna get pretty stressed out by doing that. If they are, unless they are a particular person who just doesn't get stressed out about those kind of things. But if you practice the public speaking, then over time it won't stress you out that much. And there is some carryover as well to other areas. If you overcome the stress of public speaking, you can also overcome the stress of similar domains like camera frightness or those kind of things as well. But you probably won't be able to overcome the fear of fighting someone in a cage or running from a lion, right? So those are different types of stressors, and you probably won't be overcoming that type of fear with overcoming the fear of public speaking.
Is there anything that you do for your mental health to be able to have that resilience as well?
I have practiced like Stoicism in the past, which is a form of philosophy where you're focusing on the things that you can control rather than the things you can't, and trying to look at things from a logical perspective. So I just think about what can I do instead of what's wrong, and I focus on, and I'm not gonna get stressed out or anxious if I can't do anything about it. It's just because there's nothing you can do about it. So there's no reason to really get that stressed out about it.
So then we've obviously talked about the whole mental resilience. For physical resilience, what are some of the things that the listener could do to build that?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing for that is exercise. So if you are exercising regularly, then your body is more resilient. And by doing exercise, you have this increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, and at least in a good exercise program, you're also forced to control your stress response in some way. If you're doing, let's say, aerobic exercise, you can monitor your breathing, you can control your breathing, and that forces your body, that forces you to become more mindful about your body in a stressed out situation. And in the real world, then you will also have this mindfulness or ability to take control of your stress response by doing that. With heat exposure, saunas, it increases your heat tolerance, so you're able to tolerate the heat more. But similarly, you're sitting in this hot box, and it's in the beginning it can be uncomfortable, but if you push through it a little bit, then that's another form of overcoming adversity and controlling your stress response. Although the sauna isn't that stressful as exercise and not as stressful as work, but just the skill of being a bit more patient as well and waiting for the 20 minutes to go by, that is another skill set, but it carries over to stress resilience as well.
And you just mentioned the sauna there. I'm sure you know about like a lot of research in terms of how it impacts men down below. I don't know if you've seen that, where men are using ice packs in saunas. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, it's very established that heat on the testicles lower sperm count. So, yeah, the sauna, because it overheats the testicles' entire body, then it can lower sperm count, and cooling them down with ice packs or ice cubes can mitigate that or avoid that effect. Now, I think, it's so I guess men care a lot about certain metrics that are related to their biological sex, like testosterone and sperm count and sperm volume. And, I'm sure there is some association between higher sperm count and longevity, that healthier men have higher sperm count and they live longer. But, in this particular example, it's it's important to know why the sperm count is low. So in these observational studies, unhealthy men who eat bad diets and they're obese, they have lower sperm counts, which is the why they live shorter. But if a healthy man, if outside of Finland and Scandinavia and Estonia and Russia, people who take the saunas are just health conscious. In Finland, everyone takes the sauna, but outside of that, there's going to be only health conscious people mostly taking the sauna regularly. So these people already are healthy and they have already higher sperm count to begin with. So even though they might see a drop in their sperm count in the sauna, it doesn't mean that they're getting unhealthier. It's just that men care about those metrics for reasons. It reverses back to normal once you stop taking the sauna for a few weeks. So yes, it's nothing harmful to use the ice packs, and yes, it maintains higher sperm count in the sauna, but I guess it's over exaggerated why you would need to do that. Unless you're planning to get children in the short term, then yes, you would probably want to do that. But as a otherwise health conscious man, you don't necessarily need to use the ice packs. It's just men care about their testosterone and they care about their sperm count and other metrics related to down below metrics.
Thank you for that. As it's called the Detached Podcast, I have a traditional question where I ask my guests, what would you detach yourself away from that's limiting you today?
Hard to say. Detach away. What's limiting me or holding me back? Well, I guess I'm a more like a person in routines, and I like to do my routines. So broadening the skill set as a entrepreneur, or broadening the skill set in my career probably will be doing good. So I like to do things in a routine manner and do the same things oftentimes. So sometimes I need to focus on other things that I'm doing less or require a bit more prioritization.
Thank you so much. You've been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you.